Hey, what's going on guys, Khraze here, welcome back to another Godfall video, and today let's take a look at the best skills that you should invest points into as early as possible, especially since quite a number of these will turn you into an absolute beast that can take down enemies in really interesting ways, and I would even dare say that combat becomes way more engaging once you get these new combat skills and abilities. So if you enjoyed this video at any point, don't forget to leave a thumbs up on it, and let's begin with the skills right here. And of course, if you want to copy my skill tree distribution, you can definitely go ahead and do so, but I will go ahead and clear them right now so that I can better give you the examples. Now, first things first, you will start with each of the four corners, so this is basically where you begin with the nodes, and then each node that you unlock is going to give you access to new ones that you can progress later down the line. But one of the first that I immediately invested a point into was this one in finesse. Basically at level 1 you don't really have access to a dodge, but more like a sidestep. That's nowhere near good enough for some of the end game challenges or some of the tougher bosses that come later down the line. So in this case, that will turn that sidestep into a full-on evading slide that can take you out of danger really easy. So this was the first point that I went with right here. Now from here on, what I did is I went with full 5 points into finesse so I can reach level 5 at the bottom. Now the reason I did this is because this is one of the best early damage bonus buffs that you can get your hands on. So basically it makes your sprint attacks to deal 50% more damage to full health enemies. And guess what? You're going to want to start combat with groups of enemies with sprint attacks anyway, since they deal the most amount of damage, they give you access to brand new types of attacks with the same weapons, so it's an all-around amazing way to go in, kill enemies faster, and do it in a way more interesting kind of way. Just keep in mind that you have to be at full health to benefit from the 50% buff, but this means every new group is going to be taken down really easily. Now from this point on, what I did is I invested 1 point into breach, simply because the level 1 in the breach is a perfect synergy with level 5 in finesse. So just like level 5 in finesse, this one gives your leaping shield bash a 50% additional bonus damage to full health ranged enemies this time around. So what this means is that you can go against ranged enemies, deal additional damage, and not only do you get the 50% buff from this, but also the 50% buff from here, to a total of 100%, basically just doubling your damage against ranged enemies. And these are really annoying later on in the game when you go against those ones that kind of heal their entire parties. These are amazing against those, so you will want to prioritize those enemies. Now from this point on, what I did is, well, you kind of have a couple of options. Personally, I really enjoy the weapon techniques. Now it's pretty self-explanatory, you will want these early on in the game anyway, but this one is going to give you access to 2 new types of attacks for each of the weapons in the game. Some of them could be some really powerful ground slams, others could just pull in enemies, others could be like a teleport front, really amazing types of abilities that you will definitely want. So you basically use them in the same way, except this time around you have to press E on the keyboard and mouse. Not really sure for the controller which one is it, but basically you hold E and either do the light or the heavy attack, and it's going to perform a different type of special attack with that weapon. Now you can't just do these all the time, of course. You will need to check these 2 bars beneath the weapon that you currently have equipped, so these fill up as you attack enemies, defeat enemies. As you progress through combat, these will naturally unlock, and you're going to be able to use either the one or the other, or both in quick succession for some really crazy damage. Now from this point on, you have to decide between the type of player that you are. Are you like the button mashing type that kind of doesn't think before attacks and you just like to see enemies gain slash? Well, maybe Rampage is the one for you. Otherwise, if you are a more deliberate type of player, if you like to plan your attacks so that they hit in the right moment for the maximum potential, then maybe weapon timing is the one for you. But I will cover both of these, including how to synergize them really well. So Rampage is the one that I went with right off the bat, simply because Rampage is the way to go in the early stages. It makes it so that when you land multiple weapon hits in the same target in a short period of time, you're going to enter the Rampage mode, which means that you will deal 20% more damage with all of your attacks. And by the way, this also lasts 10 seconds unless you don't hit the enemy, case in which it expires. So this is really all around amazing with any weapon that has fast attacks. This includes dual blades or even like the one-handed sword. Really amazing with those ones, and you can even see the effects while under the Rampage, because it kind of makes this wind, a particle effect, to appear around around all of your attacks. Meanwhile, the weapon timing is a bit different. This rewards patience and timing your attacks. At level 1, basically you perform this regular attack, and if you wait a couple of seconds, you can then perform a special weapon timing attack that will deal a special type of damage. In the case of the sword, it could be something like a double cross slash, or in the case of the dual blades, it could be something like, for example, a jump back with a spin that can get you out of trouble. So again, these are different for all of the weapons in the game. In this case, I would probably recommend you using this if you were to get something like a two-hander, maybe a great sword, or maybe those like warhammers. Really amazing with this ability right here, and you can deal some really amazing damage. But if you truly want to bring it to the next level, you will also invest an additional 1 point so that you can reach level 2, because this is basically how you combine Rampage and weapon timing. So what this means is that if you are in that timing window, basically using a regular attack and then waiting a couple of seconds, if you immediately press a heavy attack to perform a heavy timing attack, if you are also under the Rampage mode, you're going to deal a 500% damage bonus instead. So the way you would do this, you would start with a fast chain of attacks to enter the Rampage mode, and then you would do a normal attack with, for example, the light one, wait a couple of seconds, and then immediately follow up with a heavy, so that you can do that 500% additional damage with the heavy timing attack. So really amazing one for some really amazing damage. Now from this point on, you have a number of other options. Personally, I really enjoy the shield attacks first level, especially since it gives you access to some really nice way to kind of push back enemies a little bit. So you can use parry plus space in this case to perform a slam that will deal AoE damage that can push back enemies, and it's a really amazing way to kind of get away the enemies and maybe even get them ready for your follow-up attacks. Now from this point on, what I did personally, I went with the Sundering Slam. I really enjoyed this ability. You can even go with 2 levels of it. Basically, if you hold E and C at the same time on the keyboard, you basically do a slam that debuffs enemies so that they take up 20% bonus damage from all the sources, which means that you deal 20% more damage onto them with all of your attacks. You can even buff it up to level 2 so that you can get a 30% bonus damage also for 30 seconds, and then if you go to level 3, it's even crazier, because if you fully charge it up, you can also blind the enemies, which exposes them to a ton of incoming damage. So again, a matter of preference, I would probably go with the first level first, and then when I have spare points, I would go with level 3 after going over the rest that I just mentioned. But this brings us to the weak points, another very important skill right here that is actually amazing against mini bosses. Like if you fight something like this, it's going to be all around amazing against those weak points that spawn all the time. So weak points, think of it this way. Sometimes when you attack an enemy, you will see that there's a red dot appearing on their body. Basically that's a weak point, and if you aim your reticle, like the mouse click, if you aim at it and then do a slash attack, you're going to be able to deal almost double damage, maybe even more than that. So these weak points right here are really important if you go up against enemy bosses, mini bosses. Sometimes when you stagger them, there's going to be a ton of weak points appearing on them, so you can just cause a ton of damage in a very short amount of time, basically doubling it simply because you have 1 point into this. I would even argue that maybe putting 3 points into this so that you can also get the 50% breach damage could also be important, but that might be coming in handy a little bit later down the line. And finally, the last 3 points I invested into were into takedown. Of course, this is just a level 20, and from this point on you would kind of progress a lot more, but these right here would get you started really well, and the takedowns are especially amazing. Now at level 1 you can perform a takedown on regular enemies, the smaller ones, immediately after a parry. So you just wait for a parry, you parry it, and instead of wasting time dealing damage to the smaller ones, you just do a takedown that oftentimes can be very beneficial because it gives you iframes, and there's also a ton of perks in the game that can heal you on takedowns on top of other really amazing perks. So really cool way of charging up your perks. But there's also level 3, which makes them amazing against even larger enemies. So if they get below 40% HP, you can then perform immediately a takedown, kinda in a similar fashion to the other ones. But yeah, this is kinda like the skill distribution right here that I went with. Of course, from this point on you would build upon it, make make it even stronger, go with the Sundering Strikes, go with even more Rampage, go with even more weak points, maybe even invest some points into, well, Archon Fury is also an amazing one for its duration if you want it to last even longer. Like Archon Fury gives you the best bonuses right there, so eventually you will want to reach the Archon Fury too. But you can also invest some points into static bonuses like critical chance, critical hit, might, and these would be really amazing right off the bat, but I will cover these when I will go over specific builds for each of the Valor plates in the game. But yeah, this is it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Now there's going to be a ton of Godfall content coming up in the following days, so there's going to be a ton more guides, tips and tricks videos and gameplay. So if you do want to see more of that, definitely make sure you leave a like on this video, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.